Tonight on KPBS Evening Edition, stopping Tijuana sewage from shutting down our beaches. Why Coronado is being urged to join several local cities in the lawsuit against the federal government. And 1 year ago, dockless scooters and bikes took over San Diego streets. Now people with disabilities are feeling the most at risk. Plus, it's transfer season, the time of year many school districts in San Diego County are accepting applications. From neighborhood schools to charters and magnets, there's a new guide to help you figure it all out. KPBS Evening Edition starts now. Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Ebony Monet. Clean water advocates want the city of Coronado to join the legal fight to stop cross-border pollution. KPBS reporter Eric Anderson explains why it's important for the movement.
The city of Coronado has not yet joined any of the three lawsuits asking the federal government to do a better job of keeping Mexican sewage out of the ocean. The situation has been a problem for decades, but that problem reached a critical point when hundreds of millions of gallons of untreated sewage fouled the ocean for months in 2017. The city of San Diego recently joined the legal challenge filed by the state attorney general and local pollution regulators. Two other lawsuits have also been filed. Surfrider Foundation's Bethany Case says Coronado beaches have already been closed 13 days this year because of sewage contamination.
Coronado, we urge you to stand up with IB, with Surfrider, with your other neighbors. You need to take care of your citizens and your visitors. You can't ignore this any longer. Enough is enough.
Coronado's Mayor Richard Bailey says the city will press forward with its diplomatic strategy. He says that works hand in hand with the legal efforts already underway. Now, the council talked about the issue in its meeting today, and environmental groups are hoping their public comments at that meeting encourage action that leads to resolution of the sewage problem. Eric Anderson, KPBS News.
San Diego County has released data showing the spread of an intestinal disease. KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman has more on the contagious infection known as shigellosis.
County Health and Human Services says in 2017, San Diego saw the highest number of shigellosis cases in 20 years. The disease is known to cause diarrhea and can be deadly for people with a weak immune system. A health advisory from the county last year says gay men, people who are homeless, and young children are more at risk to contract the disease. The infection is spread through feces and usually affects people for less than a week. Data from the county shows cases are steadily increasing in San Diego. In 2016, there was a monthly average of 19 cases. And just last year, it rose to 32 monthly cases on average. The county's latest report shows in the first month of this year, there were 40 cases of the disease. Last year, when the shigellosis advisory was issued by the county, it says it notified homeless shelters about how easily the disease can spread.
We want to make sure that those locations maintain appropriate infection control measures. So we have communicated the fact to the staffing there that this particular infection is being seen in homeless individuals. So we want to make sure that they are practicing appropriate infection control measures and disinfecting the areas there and making sure that their customers or guests practice proper hand washing techniques.
The 3 tent shelters Dr. Wooten was referring to are still operating, although it's unclear right now if they're being impacted by shigellosis. County Health and Human Services told KPBS today no one was available for an interview on this, and they did not provide a statement. A spokesman did say, though, they plan to address the rise in cases sometime this week. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
Shigellosis is spread in a similar way to hepatitis A and is impacting the same population. There were no cases of Hep A reported in the last month. Since they started popping up about a year ago, people have complained about sharing the sidewalks with electric scooters. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen says one group in particular is affected.
So we're going to hang a left here.
Alex Montoya is taking me on a tour of the East Village where he lives. Montoya was born missing his right leg and both his arms. He gets by fine with prosthetics and says he chose to live downtown because it's easier to get around without a car.
But really, ever since the scooters have taken over, I have to really kind of take extra time and just always kind of have my head on a swivel. Because you never know, literally in a nanosecond, who might come tearing down the street.
Or more often, he says, tearing down the sidewalk. Montoya is a plaintiff in a federal lawsuit against San Diego and scooter rental companies Bird, Lime, and Razor. The lawsuit claims both the city and the companies have failed to prevent scooter users from riding or parking on the sidewalk. It claims that failure is a violation of their rights under the Americans with Disabilities Act.
It's really such a scary endeavor because, because of my prosthetic leg, I can't get out of the way as quickly. Like my reaction time is slower.
It's illegal in California to ride a motorized scooter on the sidewalk, and it's illegal to park them in a spot that blocks pedestrians or people in wheelchairs. Montoya says those laws are not well enforced.
So it's up to the city to manage the curb space, make sure that scooters are not in conflict with pedestrians. It's also up to the city to make sure that scooter riders have a safe place to ride.
Sophie Wolfram works at the nonprofit Climate Action Campaign. She says scooters could play a big role in shifting mobility away from cars, the biggest source of greenhouse gas emissions in California. But she says it's unacceptable that people with disabilities are in greater danger because of scooters. And she says that's a symptom of an even bigger problem. Streets are designed for the automobile, not humans. Scooting downtown almost always means sharing a lane with cars. And when there's a crash, the person in the car always wins.
And it's not fair to ask people to risk their necks every time they want to make a trip on a scooter by riding in traffic. So there's a lot that the city can do and needs to do to build protected space that makes it safe for scooters.
Wolfram says those protected bike and scooter lanes would make things safer for pedestrians as well. Just as soon as scooters started appearing in San Diego 1 year ago, there was a backlash. People said they were a menace, unsafe, an eyesore cluttering the public right-of-way. Wolfram says you could say the same thing for cars.
I think one way that the disruption scooters have brought has been useful is that they have exposed some biases we have about how we should move around our city and what kinds of mobility devices we accept having strewn about our city.
Mayor Kevin Faulconer recently released proposed regulations for scooters. That proposal is on the agenda for a city council committee tomorrow. Montoya says he hopes that actually helps with the problem.
I don't want the scooters to go away. I think the scooters are a great invention. I think they're here to stay. But I think if they are here to stay, I think they need to be really regulated in a way that's safe for everyone so that we can all peacefully coexist and safely coexist, and so that everyone can, have a right to being able to walk safely and unimpeded as always.
The city attorney's office said it would respond to the lawsuit through the courts. Lime, one of the scooter companies named as a defendant, says it has a robust safety education campaign and that they have staff throughout the city responding to complaints of illegally parked scooters. It could be years before the lawsuit is finally resolved. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
16 states are filing a federal lawsuit against President Trump's national emergency declaration. President Trump made the declaration last week to secure funding for a border wall. The lawsuit, led by California Attorney General Javier Becerra, argues the move is unconstitutional. Becerra says California is prepared to act against the Trump administration.
The president is making a declaration which he knows is fabricated. He knows there's not an emergency at the border. He knows that he is using the National Emergency Act as a pretext to be able to get money that he couldn't get from Congress. And he knows, he admitted on Friday when he made his announcement about a declaration of emergency, that he's likely to lose in court.
Despite the lawsuits, Customs and Border Protection announced today it's starting construction to replace a section of border fencing here in San Diego. The Trump administration is planning to cancel $900 million allocated for California's controversial high-speed rail project. It also wants the state to return $2.5 billion of money already spent on it. The Department of Transportation made the announcement today after President Trump demanded the money be returned. The plan was to build a rail system between Los Angeles and San Francisco, but it's faced years of delay. The Central Valley segment of the bullet train is under construction now and set to open by 2022, but the Trump administration says the state has failed to meet completion deadlines and to provide matching funds.
You're going to run for president?
I am going to run for president. That's correct.
What's going to be different this time?
We're going to win.
Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders is giving the White House another shot, announcing a 2020 presidential run. This time, Sanders is running as an independent. He ran as a Democrat in 2016, but was controversially beat out by Hillary Clinton for the party's nomination. Sanders says his progressive views have reshaped political standards and plans to continue that going into this election.
I think what I am very proud of, and in a sense, this campaign, John, is a continuation of what we did in 2016. You may recall that in 2016, many of the ideas that I talked about, Medicare for all, raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour, making public colleges and universities tuition free, all of those ideas, people will say, oh, Bernie, they're so radical, they are extreme. The American people just won't accept those ideas. Well, you know what's happened in over 3 years? All of those ideas and many more are now part of the political mainstream.
Sanders won more than 13 million votes in 2016 in dozens of primaries and caucuses. Meanwhile, one of Bernie Sanders' presidential competitors continues on the campaign trail. California Senator Kamala Harris stumped in Portsmouth, New Hampshire for President's Day. Senator Harris says she plans on winning the state.
I'm here to tell you, I plan on spending time in New Hampshire. I plan on competing in New Hampshire. I plan on doing very well in New Hampshire. So that is my intention.
New Hampshire is the first state to hold its presidential primary in the U.S. election cycle.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, an election board in North Carolina is deciding the country's one remaining congressional race yet to be called. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
Now to discuss the process of selecting the best school for your child. Many families are doing that right now. Whether you decide to send your kid to the neighborhood school or a public magnet school or public charter school, now is the time to make that decision. And to help us make that decision is a Parent's Guide to Public Schools presented by Voice of San Diego. And joining us now is the editor-in-chief of Voice in San Diego. Scott, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
In full transparency, I love this guide. How did it all come about?
Well, we were doing some podcasts a few years ago about the problem and the challenge of choosing a school, because a lot of people, even if they choose their own neighborhood school, sometimes wonder if that was the right choice, right? And people were calling and asking us for a lot more advice on how to make that choice. And we decided that it was this was the kind of thing that people needed, as much of the information as possible, and some explainers too as well about what some of these types of schools are, how the choice system works and stuff like that.
Why not just direct parents to what was already out there?
Well, it was all in different places. So there was one school site, Great Schools, has a certain amount of data. The state has a lot of data, but it's very hard to navigate. And then we realized that there was a lot of people who needed more mobile, sometimes even more paper copy that aren't as, don't have as many online resources and stuff like that. And so we wanted to make sure they had something they could write on, they could look at, they could compare, they could take with them on the school tours, and decided to pull it all in one place.
And this guide includes test scores, graduation rates, diversity, even absenteeism. Why does something like absenteeism matter?
Well, we wanted to make sure it wasn't just a ranking of schools based on their test scores. Test scores are an important factor. They're an index, a part of the index that everybody should look at. But there's a whole other range of data points that are available we should look at. And one of them is absenteeism. If there's a high rate of absenteeism at a school, that's an indication that there's something wrong, that there's something that you should ask about, that you should talk about, and that you should understand. Maybe it's a cultural problem, maybe it's a discipline problem, maybe it's something else to look at. Grad rate's the same thing. And AP testing test takers. We had some schools where there's a lot of AP test takers and some where there's none. But then if you go to that school, they might say, well, we have a concurrent enrollment program instead with the local college. So there's a lot of factors that one piece of data doesn't really capture.
Now, a lot of families, we're in the situation where you're trying to decide whether or not to go to the neighborhood school.
Right.
And sometimes it's not exactly the right fit.
Right.
So what are the options?
Well, there's sort of different levels. You can choose out of your neighborhood school, but into the same cluster of schools usually. You can ask for another option there, and we give you the data so you can look and see what is available about that. You can transfer within a district, and that's the window for most districts that's open right now until usually about April. You can choose another school and apply, and if they have space for you at another school within that district, you can get there. San Diego Unified is different. San Diego Unified's window is in the fall, and that's October, November. So if you want to choose a school within that window already passed. But this data is fresh for the next round. And then if you don't want a neighborhood school within that district, you can also look for special magnet schools. Magnet schools are usually designed around a particular curriculum, arts and performance, or science and technology, and those are schools managed by the district. And then you can also choose a charter school, and those windows are open now too.
So can you explain the difference for the parents out there or the guardians out there who may not know the difference between public school, charter school, magnet school?
Right. So there's traditionally managed schools, which are run by the district. Those are your neighborhood schools. Magnet schools are also run by the district. They just have a different program, curriculum, like I said, and so it attracts different people from across the area. And then charter schools are overseen by the district. They have to get their renewal every 5 years from the district, but they're managed independently. So often they have a much more creative or different sort of structure of curriculum. Their idea was to test things, and if they worked, then the whole district could apply them. Often that has now become the default alternative for a lot of people in different neighborhoods, and so that can cause a little bit of a rivalry between them and traditional public schools.
And you're hosting some information sessions. Can you tell people what they can expect?
Yeah, so people come in, they got their notes ready, they got their pens ready, and they have a lot of questions still about what some of these data points mean, when they were taken. There's a new rating we've put in here called the equity rating that we got. Each school is rated by greatschools.com about how their equity rating, how they treat different types of students from different backgrounds and how their outcomes are. And, that kind of thing, it's still a little confusing how that number is derived, and so we'll answer those kind of questions.
Scott Lewis, Voice of San Diego Editor-in-Chief, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
To download the Parents Guide and to get a full list of dates and upcoming times for the upcoming informational community events, go to voiceofsandiego.org. The Padres are reported to be part of one of the biggest deals in sports history. The Union Tribune and multiple media outlets report the team will sign Manny Machado to a 10-year contract worth $300 million. Those reports cite multiple sources close to the team. Machado plays third base and is a 4-time All-Star. He was part of the Dodgers team that went to last year's World Series. Cutting-edge research into the brain activity behind stuttering could lead to breakthroughs in Alzheimer's disease. JA Signs from SciTech Now takes us to the University of Texas for a first-hand look at the research.
We're studying people who stutter, and the reason for that is that they have pretty much normal brains, but every once in a while it will clearly not be operating normally. They'll stutter. And it's just obvious when that happens. And so we're trying to understand how a brain is pretty much normal most of the time and then suddenly fails and then comes right back and acts normally again. So people who stutter, they'll be fluent, then disfluent, then they're right back in the game and being fluent. So we want to understand that process. What's different about the brain when people are disfluent versus when they're fluent?
I have struggled with stuttering pretty much my entire life. And one day I wanted to, do something about it. So I enrolled in this intensive speech pathology program over at Texas State, and the professor there works with Dr. Jeffrey Mock here at UTSA. He invited me to be one of the test subjects since I've been very involved with helping out the schools speech program.
So EEG is electroencephalography, and basically it means it's a non-invasive brain imaging technology. It's really the only non-invasive brain technology that's portable. So EEG, there are other brain technologies like MRI, and they require you to be in a big machine. EEG, you put it on your head, you can move around, and because of the wireless technology, it can be monitored. So EEG is the only brain technology, imaging technology that you can do to monitor the brain at work.
Once we identify those fingerprints, then we're going to try to train people to change that electrical activity to fit the good fingerprint more often. And we do that by feeding back activity about what their brain is doing in near real time. So it's sort of like playing Marco Polo, right? You can kind of get information, you're getting warmer, you're getting colder. So we want them to get warmer towards that good brain state.
I'm hoping that this research will lead to better ways to help people like me, if they could find the area of the brain that could activate right before a person stutters, then science can target that, get that area, and find a more physical, maybe possibly a physical way of help for people like me. And also gives me, for me personally, a sense of self-accomplishment that I know that I can help, that I can do something about it, even if it's in just a small way.
Just after midnight on New Year's Eve 2003, a shooting shook the Lincoln Park neighborhood in San Diego. 2 women were caught in gang crossfire.
Everybody felt it, like you have 2 innocent women that were just coming from church, you know.
It's still being felt, from the families of the victims to the man convicted.
It's not even a ticking time bomb, it's exploding at this point.
Tune in for Dr. J's, our 6-part series starting February 20th at 5 and 6:30 p.m. on Evening Edition.
It's feeling chilly out there, and we can expect more of the same for the rest of this week. On top of that, more cold and more rain. Meteorologist Dajia Swad has the forecast.
As we continue through tonight, things are calm and quiet. Enjoy it while you can, because we'll be tracking out more wet weather. The satellite and radar showing us no precipitation in the area in Los Angeles nor San Diego, but we will once again still have this chilly air in place. That's going to allow for some frost advisories tonight and towards Riverside as well as into Alpine, and that means bringing your plants indoors or covering them up, as well as your pets. Don't want to keep them outside. This lasts, that frost advisory, into tonight as well as into your Wednesday morning. Chilly tonight here with a low 43, mainly clear conditions. Going to be dropping down to 35 in Oceanside, 38 in Borrego Springs, and 24 in Mount Laguna. As we move into your Wednesday, still chilly, and then we'll be watching for a low pressure system to drop from the north. As it does so, we get a better chance for wet weather. But we start the day off dry here for San Diego County. A high of 58 in Oceanside, 61 in Borrego Springs, 37 in Mount Laguna, and 60 for San Diego. It's when we head into your Wednesday and continue into your Thursday that we'll watch moisture continue to be a factor here. So Wednesday around 6 p.m. Oceanside, San Diego, as well as into Mount Laguna, going to be calling for shower activity. Then we'll be looking at snow to come into the forecast as we continue through your Wednesday night and into your Thursday overnight hours. Thursday 12 a.m. we got this pink shade color here out towards Mount Laguna. That means icing, but also wintry conditions. We'll be looking at some blues pop up here for your Thursday morning, and then by Thursday afternoon, drying on out and a better chance for sunshine. So late week, we start to see some improvements in terms of precipitation. But in the meantime, we still need those jackets and still have to be prepared for wet weather. So starting off the day dry and cool for your Wednesday here at the coast. Winds will continue to pick up, as well as precipitation Wednesday night into your Thursday. Thursday's going to be a wet day, then drying out at the coast with the cool air still in place for Friday. Inland, you have a better chance for that rain to extend into your Friday morning with a high of 58. As we move into the mountains, snow levels are dropping here. So if you're around 4,500 feet and below, 3 to 6 inches going to be what you'll see accumulating. And then as you head above 4,500 feet, looking at 6 to 12 inches to accumulate once again Thursday into your Friday morning, and then drying out into the weekend. As for the deserts, also calling for some spotty activity Thursday and into your Friday morning with a high of 60 for Friday. Reporting for KPBS News, I'm your AccuWeather meteorologist, Dajia Swad. Back to you.
If you're out and about tonight, make sure to look up. A super snow moon will be lighting up the sky. This February full moon will appear much larger and brighter in the sky because it's also a supermoon. Scientists say tonight is one of the few nights people will notice the moon rising. A full moon happens every month, and every month that moon is given a different name. Last month it was called Wolf Moon. This month it's a snow moon, and next month it will be called a warm moon. Here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. On Morning Edition, as the president continues to call for more money to expand the border wall, we'll take a look at the environmental impact of the barrier. And on Midday Edition, a status check on climate action plans in San Diego County. That's tomorrow on KPBS Radio. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.